Welcome to In Focus. I'm your host, Yesenia Taveras. On any given night, there's about 1,000 people in Delaware experiencing homelessness, including more than 200 children. Now that we are in our coldest days here in Delaware, I wanted to shed some light on a nonprofit organization that is bringing warmth to these homeless people. His name is Kelvin Lesene Jr., and the organization he is representing is Warmth In Wilmington. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
I think this is very impactful what you're doing. You're basically taking care of a population that most people forget about. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you as a person. I was very intrigued on your background. Wilmingtonian, graduated from Del State University. So let's talk a little bit about you.
So I'm 26. I'm from here in the city. Grew up on what we consider the north side off of Market Street. Went to Pencader High School, which is no longer around. And I eventually went to Delaware State University, where I graduated with my bachelor's in aviation management. My love for airplanes started when I was a kid. I went on a field trip to a military base. I got to sit inside of a jet, and I remember I sat in there. I said, I'm going to fly airplanes one day, and that didn't really work out, but I went to school and I got my degree in aviation. I still love planes. I love the business side of the industry, so it worked out perfect for me.
Wonderful. And how was it growing up as a Wilmingtonian here? Did you ever witness or was exposed to homelessness?
Yeah, we all were. I mean, we all see it. Even as a kid, you see people, sleeping out here, sleeping out there, and I remember walking to school sometimes when I went to Lewis on the west side. I remember seeing people sleeping on steps, and it's impossible to live in a city like ours or any city for that matter and not see homeless people at every turn or at some point. I remember taking the bus when I got a little older, taking the bus to the mall or wherever it may have been and seeing the people at Rodney Square and all of that. So I definitely was exposed to it, something that I saw on a regular.
That's right, Calvin. In most cities, they're all experiencing in our country some kind of homelessness.
Right.
And there's a lot of myths when it comes to the homeless people and who they are. But your organization directly works with them. But having gone to school for aviation and dealing with the homeless population, they're like two different topics on a spectrum. So how did that happen?
So one thing I got from Delaware State, besides a large bill and a nice sheet of paper that I paid for, I got the sense and the love, and there's a pride that comes with being with where you're from. You get to college no matter where it is, and you meet people from D.C. and New York and New Jersey, and they love where they're from, and they can talk bad about where they're from all day long, but don't you ever attempt to. And when I got to college, I really got a love for being from Wilmington. I remember when I got to school, and there were people who I knew were from Wilmington and said they were from Philly or New York, and it was like, no, I love the city that I'm from. And I remember I was home doing an internship at Philly International Airport, and I said, I want to do something in the city. I want to give back. And I don't have an issue with people who, give to children, but I just felt like, there were enough of those. Maybe they should come together and work more. So I said, I want to do something. And I remember the Lord told me, do something for the homeless people. They've forgotten about my people. And that's when I was sitting in bed. It was November 2014, and I said, I'm going to do something for the homeless.
And let's talk a little bit about that. You are a pastor here in Wilmington, so go ahead.
I'm a pastor here at iHub or Impact Hub Wilmington. We've been established now for about 3 years, 2 years officially, and our goal is really to bring people into the understanding of who God is, not just bring them into the understanding, but let them understand, let them show that, and let it be shown rather that there's a purpose and there's a calling on their life. They're not just called to go to church every Sunday and not do something out in the community. The church is larger than just the four walls that you come to every week for fellowship.
That's right, Calvin. And so you're one man here in Wilmington wearing many hats. That's
a
wonderful thing.
Yep.
And just to shed some facts here on homelessness, Delaware's eviction rate is twice the national average. Delaware is one of 22 states where the average one-bedroom rent is higher than the monthly supplemental security income benefit. The average state rent is about $937 per month for a one-bedroom apartment. And we have 24% of our homeless population are seniors, 15% are disabled, 7% are in school, and 3% are single caregivers. So why am I bringing these facts to you? Well, basically because there is a myth. Whenever you're walking the streets here in Wilmington or you're driving within Newcastle County and you're seeing these homeless people asking for money or food, there's a myth and a stereotype that, oh, I don't want to give them money because they're probably just going to go get some drugs.
Right.
And they're alcohol, heroin, whatever you name it. And I'm not going to partake in that because I don't want to be an enabler. But here you are, a gentleman who directly works with this population. So tell us a little bit about the community that you serve and what you've seen.
So one of the biggest myths that I love to discredit or debunk is the fact that we treat homelessness, not just in the city, but in this country, as if it's a punishment. As if homelessness is a punishment for not working hard, or homelessness is a punishment for not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, or homelessness is a punishment for not doing these steps to get to a certain level, a certain point of credibility. But the one thing that I've learned is just like I could be homeless, anyone else could be homeless or is homeless for whatever reason it may be. I remember when I first started working at the airport, I ran into a lady. She used to be a nurse. And she said what happened was she fell, got hurt at work. Some other things happened, and very long story short, she ended up homeless on the street.
Wow.
I've ran into a man that used to work at a center that no longer works there and now is homeless. It could happen to anybody, and I think that's the biggest myth. The other myth I want to debunk is if people feel like I don't want to give because I don't want them to go get alcohol or go get drugs, and I think the best thing that you could do is then give them something else, give them a resource.
Okay.
So if you don't want to give them money, understandable. I have times where I feel like money isn't the right thing to give, but I can give them resources. I can give them a bottle of water. I can go get them a meal. I can go get them whatever it is they may need that they may not want to ask for, or it negates the fear of them using it for the wrong purpose.
And you're so right, Kelvin. Inflation, I seem to believe, happens every year.
Right.
With rent going up, even the cost of milk and gas.
Right.
I mean, it's even hard for a woman like me, single mother of two, and working here at WI 1022. It can be hard just living paycheck to paycheck and making sure all of your responsibilities are paid for. And like you said, student loans, you know,
right.
I'm still paying mine.
Right. If we all be honest, majority of us are one. If Sally Mae called me tomorrow and want all their money, I'm gonna be homeless on the street. If we all be honest, we're all one missed car payment, one missed mortgage payment, one missed student loan payment, or whatever it may be, insurance payment. We're all one away from being exactly where those people are. So we got to take that into account when we're out here in the street, and we're interacting, and we're dealing with them.
That's right. And then there's another stereotype that the majority of the homeless community prefer to just live on the streets. And I don't think that is to be true. I think that the demand versus the availability of beds in these homeless shelters outweighs each other. So is that what you've been experiencing?
Yeah, I've experienced that a lot. What I've learned is because, we'll be honest, cities are for profit. So because most of these cities don't get money for taking care of these people, then they don't give as much resources as needed to take care of. I believe it was an article posted a while ago in the News Journal that said that there were over 1,000 vacant homes in the city. And in my mind, if you said there were about 1,000 every night, that's one person per home.
That's right.
So what I've learned is that how do I want to say it? What I've learned is that cities, they don't have the funding, they don't have the availability. So many times people, they won't want to stay on the streets, but they have no other choice. Because if you don't get to shelters by a certain time, then you can't get in.
Right.
Or times where it's cold purples and things like that, where it's extreme cold weather situations, they can't get in. Or some of them don't feel safe. And I'll be honest, I've been in some of these shelters where they've talking to these people like they're less than human beings. No matter how cold it is outside, I probably wouldn't want to stay in there as well. So that's something that we have to keep in the front of our mind when we look at them and say, oh, they want to be on the streets. A lot of them don't. Some of them do. Some of them feel more safe on the streets. They feel more at home on the streets. See, homelessness isn't just about a physical location, but it's a heart thing.
Okay.
So there are people who I believe who have physical structures that they call home, but their heart has nowhere to rest.
Wow. And then as you're talking, I'm just thinking of one of my favorite movies, The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, which also sheds some light on homelessness as well. And there's so many stipulations, you know, losing a loved one, being divorced, things of that nature. But The Pursuit of Happiness also sheds light on his relationship with his son. And so how many children, there's more than 200 children right now here in Delaware who are experiencing homelessness and still have to get up in the morning and go to school and don't have a room of their own to come back home to claim their own where they can sit down and study. What are some of the stories you've heard from the children you've dealt with?
I've heard of children who stay in shelters, and honestly, you would never know. If you went to their schools and you talked to a classroom, you probably wouldn't be able to pick them out.
Because they're not going to say it either.
They're not going to say, and they don't look like it. See, homelessness isn't a look. Like I said, it could happen to anybody. So there are people who are homeless, you probably have no idea. And a lot of times I've run into, and I've heard stories of children who, again, who are homeless, who are going to school every day, and that lunch that they're getting is the only meal they get every day. I used to work at Price's Pool. My first job, actually, when I worked for the city, was a lifeguard.
A lifeguard. I did that too.
My first job. And I remember kids who, they do the park lunch, and those kids, the pool opened at 12. They were there from 12 to 6. They left at whatever time the park lunch came, and they went and got lunch. And as I sat, and I was 16 years old, and I sat and I was like, why are these kids here all day, every day? And I realized that this is the only thing they have. That meal is a lot of times the only meal that they get.
That's so true. And I experienced that as well, not only as a lifeguard, but also when I was a camp counselor at the Wilmington Community Center.
Right.
As a teenager. You really get immersed into the community, into the neighborhoods, and these children's lives and how they're really living. And it wakes you up. It really does. And it allows you to know how fortunate you are. But like a person yourself who is fortunate, you come back to help the less fortunate. And I think that's what more of us need to really dive into. So let's talk a little bit now about your nonprofit organization. You found the heart to go ahead and create this. So what is Warmth in Wilmington?
So our vision in the smallest scheme is to make the hardships of misfortune bearable for all people. So we want to go out and make sure that we provide as many resources and services as we can to make their time on the street as bearable as possible. But we don't want them to stay there. My goal is not always to help more people, but if I can help less people by getting more people out of that situation.
Okay.
So we have an initiative where we feed 500. We call it Feed 500, where we feed the homeless and those in need for Thanksgiving every year. We've done the last 2 years. And what I've learned is that's actually last year at the RVRC, which is no longer with us. But so what I've learned is those meals are so necessary. It's so necessary for those people.
And how do you get 500 meals? I mean, do you get a lot of
So I get a
that help
lot. I'm a very grassroots organization. We have our 501c3. We are tax exempt. But a lot of what I get, even from the beginning, is from the community, people in the community. I post on social media, hey, I'm doing haircuts. You could sponsor somebody for a haircut for $20, and that'll get them a haircut. And I get all 97, honestly, % of my funds come from grassroots and people who give.
That's wonderful. The community helping out the community. I like that.
Yep.
And now, did you start out with food, or did you start out
So we
with
started with blankets. So when I was in my bed that day in November 2014, I was laying in bed and I literally said, I want to do something. And I said, I don't want to do coats because it becomes a lot, sizes and all that. And I said, well, they're on the street, so they probably need blankets because it's cold. And I remember I put a post out on Facebook, and by the end of that week, I had a trunk full of blankets. So what I would do is every time my trunk got full of blankets, me and my best friend Alex, we would go out to different locations of, where the homeless are, and we would give out blankets so the trunk was empty. And we've been out there when it snowed, we've been out there when it's rained, because what people don't realize is, yes, you give these things, but they're outside in the elements. So if it rains, they have nowhere to dry their blankets. So the blankets that they had yesterday are still soaking wet today, and they have to lay back on them.
Okay, which can cause a bunch of health issues as well.
A bunch of health issues and add to the cold.
That's right. And I love the name Warmth in Wilmington because you're literally bringing them warmth, not only externally with the blanket, but internally with nutrition.
Right. Yep.
That's wonderful. And what are some of the feedback that you get from the homeless community when they do receive the blankets and the food and the haircuts?
They're appreciative. I think there's a negative stigma as well. That sometimes people think that they aren't appreciative, or they're snobby, or they're particular. And I would say this, be mindful. Don't give them something you wouldn't give to someone you love. Don't give a blanket you wouldn't give. Don't give we kind of give them our rags. Like I wouldn't want someone to give me their rags. So be mindful. But a lot of the feedback we get, they're truly grateful. They're some of the most grateful people I've ever met. That's one thing I learned. I just came back from mission trip to Belize, and I've realized that sometimes the people who have the least are the most appreciative and love life the most. And I ran into a guy actually about a year and a half ago. I was walking into Wawa, and he stopped me. He said, "Didn't you feed for Thanksgiving last year?" And I said, "Yeah, I fed." And he was like, "Man, I appreciate it so much." He's like, "Man, I got everything turned around. I got a house, I got an apartment, I got a vehicle now, I got a nice job," and he had a girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
So he was in good shape. He stopped me. I've run into just a bunch of people who just see me out on the street or see us out doing our thing, and they remember me as a kid with the blankets.
And what's the reward you get? Because like you said, a kid, you're a young man, African-American male, you're really stepping out of the titles that everyone holds at an employer, and you're stepping into your purpose, and you're really giving back to this community. How does that feel for you?
For me, it's amazing. It's fulfilling. Nothing else can fulfill me more aside of my wife and being married and things like that, and my church and God. But it's fulfilling because I know that what I'm doing is not only mandated, but it's necessary. Because I know that it's a population that many people, when we give our money, that's the distance we like to keep between us and the people in need.
Right.
So I feel fulfilled when I get to get in the trenches and go out and clean the highway with them or whatever it may be, and really work with them, and just fellowship with them. Being a Christian and being a pastor, that's one thing I'm big on, is fellowship.
That's right.
There's a scripture that says, feed the homeless or the hungry and take care of those in need. And that's exactly what I do.
And it's very important. I feel like a lot of Americans tend to forget about helping the less fortunate. You get your paycheck and you want to hold on to it. But if you look at the 1% of our community, or I should say the state of America, who are the wealthiest, they're always giving back. If it's cutting a check to a nonprofit organization or sowing a seed over here, they're always making sure that they're giving back. And it could be for business purposes too, but for some of them it could be because it's really out of the kindness of their heart. But in order to receive something great, you also have to give something great. And you do get out of life in this road what you put into it. And you're a huge testament to that.
One of the biggest things that I get is with our highway cleanup program. So what we did was we adopted a highway on Governor Prince. It's a 2-mile stretch of highway, and we commit to clean it 3 times a year. So what our focus behind that was, there goes our sign. Our focus behind that was to make it as a day work program for about 5 or 6 guys. And we paid them to come out and work alongside volunteers to clean that 2-mile stretch.
And so they get paid.
So the homeless people get paid. Those in need get paid, and they come work alongside my volunteers, and we clean up our 2-mile stretch. And for me, it was the way to restore pride, restore dignity back in these people, that they feel like they're working towards something, but also beautify our city. So my goal going forward by the end of the year is to get other businesses on board that have highways or would look to adopt a highway, and then sponsor the people at least one time a year to come out and help clean. So I want to get 5 businesses, organizations to sponsor a highway, and then sponsor 1 cleanup a year.
Okay. And as I'm hearing you share your story, I'm just sitting here thinking about why. What is your why? I mean, that is so huge for you not to only be a Wilmingtonian, but to take care of a street that hundreds are traveling through day in and day out, rather be going to work, visiting a relative, or even riding your bike in the summertime for transportation or just for fun. But here you are, a young gentleman taking care of the very community that you were grown up in. So what is your why? What motivates you to do that?
The city gave me everything. It made me the man I am, right, wrong, or indifferent. The good things I learned and the bad things I learned. Like I say, I grew up on 26 and West, and I learned, I've seen some of it all. But again, it makes, I feel fulfilled when I can give back to the city that made me the man that I am. I went to the PAL. I grew up going there. I grew up going to the center of West Center City. Grew up going to Prices and the pool and things like that. So I grew up in the city. So it would be selfish of me, I believe, to not give back to the city that made me the man that I am. Because if I give back to help someone else, then there'll be a kid one day sitting in my seat, sitting here with you or someone else, talking about how someone gave back to them. I had people, coaches, things like that, who helped get me to become the man that I am.
And now, Kelvin, this might be getting into a little deep, but I would love for you to share with us any hardships or adversities you face, because one always sees here on a talk show or on your news feed on Facebook all the great things. People smiling, people accomplishing their goals, being successful in life, opening up a business. Here you are, very successful with your nonprofit, going into its 4th year?
Yep, 4th year.
4th year. So I know there had to be some obstacles and hurdles along the way. So if you could please share with us some of the hardships, the bad that comes with the good.
I mean, I grew up in a single parent home, so that's not to be cliche, but it's kind of explains itself. We didn't always have it all. My mom did the best that she could, but I remember, times the lights being off or things, maybe for a day or so she couldn't get the money or had to wait till her next paycheck to pay. And I remember those times. And for me, I said, if I can, I'll help someone else who can, because I remember people who helped us. Like I said, I remember I played lacrosse in high school. I remember I had a night game, and it was on like a Thursday or Friday. And I got home and, the power was off, and it was only for a couple hours, but I remember those times. And of course, I have stories for centuries about college. I mean,
That's right.
that college struggle is different, man, but I think it built character, and it built integrity in me. It built a level of appreciation that I think some people don't get, or some people oftentimes forget.
Wow, that's wonderful. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking about with Black History Month just finishing, and one of our producers here, India Williams, did a nice documentary series on Black history being 365. And I think you really exemplify that. You really do, of a young gentleman. I'm just thinking about the young boy that might be looking at you and as if looking in the mirror and saying, I too can do this. You came through a single parent household. And now look at you.
Right.
College degree, aviation, nonprofit organization. That's a huge testament.
My family's from South Carolina. My grandparents are actually on both sides. I'm sure we're related somehow. But I remember, growing up as a kid, my grandmother would tell me, when she was a kid, she couldn't go to school past 10th grade because they thought that was too much education for a Negro to have. Or my other grandmother, was supposed to be in school, but they would have to lay down in the fields in the morning when the bus went by because they would skip school in order to go and work in the field so they can get money for their family. I was down there recently and we rode by what looks like a broom closet. She said they would fit 100-something kids in there for school and cook meals. So for me, those things were embedded in me and ingrained with me, and it gave me a level of appreciation and understanding that what I have is an opportunity that I can't squander. It would be selfish of me and those people who came before me that paved the way. It would be selfish of me to not do my part, if nothing else, to get all that I can get.
Now we have a few minutes left here, but I really want to give you the seat to talk to that individual who might be on the fence of becoming homeless, or might be on the fence of venturing out on starting their own nonprofit or business. What advice could you share with them, or words of encouragement, inspiration, or even the one who's going to college and doesn't want to pay their student loans?
Right.
Like anything you can share with us, Kelvin.
At the end of the day, it's all worth it. And that's one thing that I've been able to sit back. When you look back over it all, you look back over everything you've been through, you went through, it's all built to where you get to in the end, at the end result. If you're homeless or on the verge of being homeless, don't give up. If you can, reach out, find somebody to help. Don't let your pride get in the way to a point where you can't say, listen, I need help. If you're going to college, listen, I couldn't afford it, still can't afford it. That's why I had to build the way that I do. If you're going to college, listen, that is almost inevitable. Spend the money, go to college. It's an experience that you can't get. Listen, if you only go for a year or a semester, get that experience in your life. I think it's so crucial. It's crucial to learn about you being out there in college. If you are looking to start a nonprofit, find a mentor. I'm available. My contact information will be available. Reach out to me. I'll help you. I don't mind helping people. But if you feel like you want to help or start something, start doing it first. Do a sock drive. Do a book bag drive. Do something first before you go on, because what people focus on in this arena as far as philanthropy goes is consistency. So be sure this is something that you want to do. Don't start it and then 2 months later you're no longer around because it looks like you were playing games with people and their money and their time.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kelvin. Very impactful, all that you do. And best of luck on the rest of this year. And I know next year you'll be celebrating your 5th year. So congratulations on everything you've been doing in your life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you. And thank you for remembering the homeless population here in Wilmington.
Of course.
And on behalf of all of us here at WITN 22, thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Yesenia Taveras.